Hello, welcome back. I'm C, and I am powerless over addiction. We're now up to step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. There's that word again, God. As I said in the last session, for some people, that simply does not work. There are many people in recovery who are atheists, who are agnostic, who have no appreciation for or acceptance of a deity at all, of the God that I understand, God, and that is okay. Recovery is possible. You do not need to believe in a Judeo-Christian God or any other kind of God in order to recover. I happen to. It works for me, but that need never be a barrier to recovery for anybody. There are many secular meetings, there are many atheist and agnostic meetings out there. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. I haven't talked too much yet about my life and who I was before I picked up and when I started and all of that. So I'll say a little something about that now. I've mentioned that I had an alcoholic mother and alcoholic stepfather. I was born in the Deep South, and my father left my mother while she was still pregnant because his mother had tried to warn him that she had a drinking problem, but he didn't see it. He thought she just liked to party. He liked to drink, he liked to party. But he thought that, after they got married and she became a mom, that she would straighten up. And that did not happen when she was pregnant. So he left and he went west and he tried to get her to follow and she didn't want to come. And so he divorced her. And she quickly remarried. She went to the local Air Force base looking for a husband who liked to drink like she liked to drink. And she quickly found one and off we went overseas. And that was a horrible time for her. She never, ever, ever went anywhere after that again because it was a horrible time for her. We're talking about a time when, well, let's just say people were less enlightened than they are now. And the military is its own little culture. And she did have a problem with drinking, so she didn't get the help she needed. It was when we were overseas that he started to beat her within 1 inch of her life. I mean, he would put on his steel-toed boots, knock her down, kick her in the head. She had so many broken bones, broken skulls, broken jaws over the years. Our house was domestic violence central. We got kicked out of that country. The United States Armed Forces decided that we weren't representing the United States very well. And so we came back to the South. And my mother said, and I'm grateful for this, she told my stepfather, we will not raise her down here. With her mouth, they will kill her. And she really meant that. And so we came to this area, and my stepfather had a long career in the military out of Andrews Air Force Base. I'm grateful that my mother made that decision for me to bring me to this area. I have had many, many opportunities. I grew up as an only child with these two volatile people. And lest I make my mother sound like she was a total victim, she did her share of damage. I mean, she scalded my stepfather twice. He doesn't have the top 3 layers of skin on his back from the second scalding. Her weapon of choice was knives. And so she cut him, she cut me. I've got my own scars. She would get drunk and try to kill somebody, him, me. It was just crazy. And when I was nearly 13 years old, she was pregnant. I was so mad at God. How could God bring another child into this madness? The state of Maryland in its wisdom took that child from her when he was 5 years of age. She tried to kill him. I left when I was 17. I couldn't get help, so I emancipated myself. I went to a friend's home and finished the school year with them, and then I was on my own, 18 years of age, scared to death. I don't know what I'm doing. All those years I worked hard to get all those A's so that I could go off to this nice college and get this great degree and get a really nice job and be somebody, because that's what my mother would always say. You got to be somebody. Grow up and be somebody. Just be somebody. Well, who? Somebody. She didn't tell me who somebody was. And how do you be somebody? I didn't know, but I'm trying to grow up and be somebody. And then I got no help to go to college. So I got a resentment about that. And I'm out there on my own. And I met somebody who was older, married with kids, but he was going to save me. And see, here's the thing. He didn't look like my stepfather. And to my young, tender child ears, he didn't sound like him. But I found my stepfather. He was just better looking and younger. And so that became a long journey of fear and shame and ever increasing addiction. There came a point where I had the courage to say enough. But it wasn't because I believed I deserved better. I brought that child into the world and nobody else wanted that baby but me. My mother said I will have nothing to do with it, and she meant it. She never bonded with that child, refused to bond with her grandchild. His daddy did not want him. Nobody wanted that baby but me. I wanted better for him, even when I didn't want better for myself. And so the day came when I had the courage to leave that situation. But I was already clean and sober. I had to get clean and sober to do that. But I had all these fears still, you see, this fear of not being enough, this fear of not being loved, this fear, because at the end of this relationship, he was telling me the same things that my mother had told me. You know, nobody's gonna love you. You're not even lovable. And look at you. And you were nothing when I met you. You know, you were in that little sad apartment with nothing but a mattress on the floor until I came along and blah, 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 blah. And even though there seemed to be some evidence that I was capable, like I could do well in school, I did well at jobs, but see, the seed had been planted a long time ago by my mother. And so all he had to do was to step into that and reinforce it. And so when I was able to leave him as a clean and sober person and leave him in his addiction, everything should have been fine. I'm going to say it again. Recovery is possible, but it is a lifetime of work. We have 12 steps for a reason, because they are going to help us with the transformation that is required to stay clean for life. Recovery, 12-step recovery, is about transformation. It begins with a complete psychic change, that is the mind. Right? That's where it starts, in the mind. Mind orders the body obeys. Mind orders the mind and meets resistance. So our mind has to be aligned with our higher power or God or whatever it is we believe in will. So step 3 says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So our will and our lives, that's my thoughts and my actions. And when I first encountered this step, thank God for sponsors, because I was missing some critical words. I was kind of having trouble with this idea of, turning over everything to this, I believed in God and I was hoping God loved me and all of that. But my sponsor finally said, the care of, because I kept saying, made a decision to turn my life and my will over to God as I understood him. And she said, the care of what? The step says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. I was missing those 3 critical words, the care of, because I hadn't been in the care of anybody. I wasn't in the care of my parents, and I wasn't in the care of the abusive addict that I ended up with. I was missing those words. In the AA 12 and 12, it says step 3 is like the opening of a door, which to all appearances is still closed and locked. All we need is a key and the decision to swing the door open. There is only one key, and it is called willingness. All I had to do was be willing to turn my life and my will over. Now understand that God won't live my life for me. God is not going to buy my groceries. God is not going to drive me to work. God is not going to pay my bills. God won't live my life for me. But this thing called my thoughts and my actions as it relates to my recovery, that I need to turn over to God, because I can't do this by myself. And I can't make myself into the person I've become. And one of the things that we don't necessarily want to hear or accept when we first get into the rooms is that we really are rather infantile when we come in emotionally. We are rather infantile. If you know an addict, or if you know an alcoholic and you think they are so childish, you're right. That's one of the characteristics of addiction, is that we are self-centered and we are childish. You know, people bring babies into the world, and nowadays it's all over social media, babies growing up on social media. And recently a friend of mine posted the baby turned over, has finally learned how to turn over. Everybody's like, yay, baby turned over. So the next thing is that the baby will be crawling, then the baby will walk, and the baby will run, and we will celebrate all those milestones along the way. And so it is with our recovery. You know, we start out just showing up and just sitting there, listening and doing what we're told, because we can't even help ourselves. And at some point, we can flip over. Woo, yay. And we learn to crawl, and we learn to walk, and we learn to run. But we do that in the company of others and we do it under the power of a caring God, in my case. You may have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The very base of Maslow's hierarchy is safety and security. And I did not have that. As a very young child, I did not have that base of safety and security. Neither one of my parents got over their addictions, and I never really felt safe in their care. My stepfather would disappear for the weekend, and then later he would disappear for weeks, and there came a point where he disappeared for a few months. To this day, I don't know where he was for those months he was gone. He just showed up again one day. And my mother wasn't always drunk when I was little. And when she was sober, to her credit, she tried to teach me what I would need to know for life, to navigate life. But addiction is progressive. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And by the time that other baby came into the world, she was so deep into her addiction and her own mental illness. And so the state really needed to take that child from her care. And he ended up being raised by family members, a wonderful grandmother whom he adored. But I didn't get that. And so I ended up being a control freak, because I was trying to make myself safe, trying to make my little world secure. So I just ended up being a big old control freak. I tell people to this day, I am a recovering control freak as well. Step 3 is hard for control freaks. We don't really want to turn our lives and our wills over to anything. We want to control this thing. Except that it doesn't work real well in the long run. I had to learn to surrender. I had to learn that really I have no control over anything. I have responsibility for many things, but I don't have any control over anything. What I have is a disease of more. That's what I have. If it feels good, if it makes me feel better, if it changes my mood, I want more of that. Once I started, I couldn't stop, and I couldn't stop from starting. So what was the difference in my life? That I turned my thoughts and my actions over to the care of God as I understand God. And that is a daily thing, that I make a decision to turn my thoughts and my actions over, because my own thoughts and my own actions are often contrary to my own well-being. So recovery is possible, but it is work. There's a reason that we go to meetings. There's a reason that we do the writing. There's a reason that we have coffee with our sponsors. Sometimes family members or people who love addicts get upset because they finally get clean. And now they're spending all this time going to meetings and doing service and all this stuff. It's like, you weren't here before. We couldn't rely on you when you were using. And now you're not here. We can't rely on you because you're trying to get clean. That's how it works. And especially for drug addiction, for many people, a long-term facility or a long-term house or long-term inpatient care is often needed, all depending on the drugs. The days of just dropping into an AA meeting are gone for an awful lot of people. Sometimes people need up to a year living in a sober house or a clean house or something like that before it's now natural to not use. But understand this, every day that I do not use is an abnormal day for me, because my nature, what I'm supposed to be doing on any given day is using. That's just what I do. Left to my own devices, I just use. I feel something uncomfortable, I feel pain, I feel fear, I feel insecurity, I feel whatever it is that I don't like. My response is supposed to be, ooh, do something about that. And that doing something about it ends up looking like pouring vodka all over my life and setting it on fire with a blunt. That's what I did for years, until something greater than me pulled me up out of that, pulled me up off of my knees first thing in the morning over the toilet with dry heaves, praying my kid doesn't wake up before I can get myself together enough to get up off of this floor and act like I'm a normal person. I'll say it again. Nobody wants to be an addict. Nobody wants to live like this. Nobody. It may look like it was a choice. And it's true that chances are nobody put that needle in our arm but us. Nobody forced that stuff up our nose. Nobody poured the drink down our throat to begin. But that substance, whatever it was, met our need in a profound way. Our need to feel safe, our need to feel loved, our need to feel a part of. You know, you hear so many stories about people who never felt like they fit in anywhere. I was one of those people. I thought I was unique. I start going to meetings and I hear this again and again and again. Most addicts and alcoholics will tell you they didn't feel like they fit in anywhere. And again, if you're a family member, especially if you're a parent, you're like, what? We had a loving family. Of course they fit in. But you don't know what the alcoholic or the addict feels. You can never know that. Why it is that they felt that way, why it is that you got 6 kids and 5 of them are fine. I mean, they may be not perfect, but they're fine. And then you got this one, they were raised in the same house with the same parents. What happened? I don't know. I don't know. But their truth is that they didn't feel whatever it was. But that substance, that booze, that drug, that pill, that smoke met that place of fear of losing what I have, of not getting what I want, and of being found out. It met that fear, and we were able to say, it's going to be all right now. It is not going to be all right, and we'll talk more about that in the 4th step.